My name is Kendra Hernandez, and I have been teaching for 6 years. I decided that I wanted to be a teacher when my oldest son started school, and I noticed that he had some learning difficulties, and I just wanted to help kids like him. I had one student recently who had a physical disability. It was a genetic disorder, and he had feeding tubes. Cognitively, he was average where he should be, but physically, he had to have the feeding tubes, the breathing tubes, the tracheotomy. Um, he had part of his skull that had been removed, and so he had to wear a helmet. Um, and at one point, he had just had surgery, and he needed to have poles. He had a halo around his head with some poles on it to kind of help form his skull. So, because he was cognitively average, the teaching strategies that I used in order to accommodate his learning were just they were more physical um, accommodations rather than changing how he was learning things or what he was learning. It was just altering the way that the assignments were placed so that because he couldn't move his head down very well, or you know different kinds of slant boards, different kinds of um, accommodations like in PE and music. He couldn't be around a lot of kids that would move around a lot because if he fell or if he got pushed over, he possibly hurt his skull. Uh, and so there were a lot of accommodations to make learning safer for him, but not necessarily easier on a cognitive level. Um, but they were successful. He was able to keep up with his typically developing peers. He passed his STAR exams. Met all of his expectations as far as progress monitoring and all of that. So they were successful. Difficulties was just some difficulties that I had with him were just finding the, I guess, personnel because wasn't um, he needed someone constantly with him all the time because of the safety concerns. And in the world of education, you don't always have personnel at always there. So staffing was a difficulty, and then helping other students understand his disability, and that he might look pretty different, significantly different than his peers, but having them learn to accept him and treat him normally uh, was difficult as well. My student was able to be a part of the general education. As I said earlier, there were no cognitive disabilities, so he didn't have any speech services or OT, or he didn't have any resource. All he had was instructional support, and that was just for safety concerns. So he was completely part of the general education population. He took the same STAR test, the same. He did everything exactly the same as his peers, except for those certain accommodations that he needed. So that is it. Hopefully, I answered your question.